Hi friends, my name is Akil Ahmed, and in this particular video tutorial I will show you how do you load a fact table in SQL Server using Ssis. So the agenda of today's video tutorial is how we can load a fact table into the SQL Server using Ssis. So recently I got a question from one of my subscriber, Chandra Prakash Naidu, and he asked to make a video on loading the data to the fact table. So let's jump to the demo. In my SQL Server 2019 instance, I got two databases, FemCell database, which is a transactional database, and then FemCell DW database, which is a data warehouse database. So if you see the FemCell data warehouse database, so I got few dimension tables like dimension.customer table, dimension.date table, dimension.employee table, and then dimension.product table. Alright, so I got the 4 dimension table, and then I got one fact table, fact.orders table. So in my last video I have shown you how to load the data into the dimension.employee table. So for example, if you want to check on the YouTube like how to load data into dimension table using Ssis, so you should be able to see my video. So this is the video how to load dimension table in SQL using Ssis. So you can watch this particular video. So in the fact table we load the surrogate keys from different dimension tables and then the data from the source table. So let me show you the data in the FemCell data warehouse fact.orders table. So in the fact table I got few columns like order ID, customer surrogate key, employee surrogate key, product surrogate key, and date surrogate key. So the values for all these surrogate keys like customer, employee, product, and date surrogate key, the values to these surrogates key will come from the dimension tables. So the surrogate key will be populated from the dimension table, and then the value for the quantity, unit price, tax, and last edited, it will be come from the source table. Let me execute this particular query. So this is my source table from which the fact table will be populated, and in the source table I have the columns like product ID, employee ID, customer ID. So for the product ID I will get the product surrogate key from this product table, okay, and similarly for the employee ID I will get the employee surrogate key, and for the customer ID I will get the customer surrogate key. So in the fact table, if you see the last one is the fact table, I will be populate the surrogate key from the dimension table into the fact table, and then I will populate the data like quantity, unit price, tax rate, and last edit and when. So all the remaining columns, this will come from the source table, which is the orders table, okay. So I will share all the scripts with you, like I will share the script to create these tables like dimension.customer, dimension.employee, dimension.product, and femcell.dbo.orders, and all the fact tables. So I will share all the tables with you, and I will also share the insert statement to populate the data into these tables, okay. And I have one store procedure as well, so I will share the code with you so that you can create the Ssis package to load the data into the fact table. So if I go back to another session, so if you see this is the source table femcell.dbo.orders. So in the source table I have 20,000 records, okay. So these 20,000 records should be populated to the femcell data warehouse.fact.orders table. So at the moment this particular table is empty, okay. If you see that this customer table is populated, we have 10,001 records in it. Employee table is also populated, we have 101 records in it, and the product table is also populated, and then the date table is also got populated, and then the fact table is empty, okay. So this is how the data is look like. So there is one important thing, that we should populate the surrogate key as 0 into all the columns. Like we can have a surrogate key into the customer ID as customer SK as 0, and all the values like 0 or blank, okay. For example, if it is a integer, then we can put 0, and for rest of the fields like customer first name, last name, we can put a blank value. Similarly, we can have an employee SK as 0 and the employee ID is 0 and the first name, last name as blank. So we can insert one entry into each dimension table for the 0 surrogate key. The reason why we want to insert the surrogate key as 0 into all the dimension table is that because if, for example, if you are loading the data from the femcell.dbo.orders table, so if, for example, for a particular product ID, if the data did not found in the product table, then the zero surrogate key will be used there, because sometimes if you have the foreign key on the orders table, and if you have the foreign key, for example on the customer key, so the whatever value you will be inserting into the customer surrogate key, that value should exist in the customer table. So in case if data did not match, so we will insert the customer sk as 0. Okay, so similarly, for example, if you are trying to insert the data into the employee surrogate key employee sk, and the data did not found, for example in the destination table, then if we have a employee surrogate key as 0, then we can insert that 0 value. Okay, so that's why we will populate the 0 value to all these particular fields. Okay, so I have already created a store procedure here, sp underscore populate dim table. Okay, so what this is doing, first of all, it is checking like select count star from the dimension dot customer where customer surrogate key is 0. So if it is 0, then what we will do, that we will insert a record into the dimension dot customer table, and we will put the customer surrogate key as 0. Okay, and all the remaining fields as blank, and the start date will be current date time and end date will be null. Okay, similarly for other table as well, for example for the dimension dot employee table, we are checking if the employee sk is 0. So if record does not exist, then it will insert a record, and if, for example, if record will be there, then it won't do anything. Similarly, we are inserting a record into the dimension dot product table, and then inserting a record into the dimension dot date table. Okay, for dimension dot date table, we are inserting the default value is 19000101. Okay, so this is how we are inserting the data. So let me just execute this particular store procedure so that it can populate the data to all these dimension tables. Okay, so let me just execute the store procedure here, exec, and then the store procedure name. So the store procedure got executed. So it is saying cannot find the object dim.employee because it does not exist. So let me check, like, are we using the dim.employee? Ideally it should be dimension.employee. Okay, so let me check it, dim.employee. Okay, so it should be dimension.employee. So I can copy the value from here, paste it here. Okay, and then I can execute it. Let me close this one, and then let me rerun this particular query again. So now you can see that this process got completed, and let me remove this one, and if I run this particular whole query again, so now you can see that for the customer table, this is the customer sk which is 0, employee sk is 0, product sk is 0, and the date key is 19000101. Okay, so this is good, and still the data in the fact table is empty, fact.orders is empty as of now. Okay, and let me show you one more code, that this is the code that we are using to recreate the dimension.date table and populating the data into the dimension.date table. So we are actually dropping the dimension.date if this table exists, and then we are creating the dimension.date table in this particular location, and then we are populating the data from 1st January 2000 to 1st January 2025. Okay, so for these particular years, I think 25 years, we are populating the data. Yeah, so that's what we are doing here. So let me execute this particular query. So it will populate the data into the dimension.date table for the 25 years. Okay, I will share this script as well with you. And now let me go back to this particular table, and let me try to write the SSIS package for loading the data into the fact table. So let me open the SSIS package. So this is my blank SSIS package, and the first task that I will drag and drop into the control flow task will be the execute SQL task. And in this particular task, I will create a staging table. So I can call this task as create staging table, and the staging table we will create is to update the fact table. So I can go back to the SQL Server Management Studio, and if you check here that we got a table fact.orders update. So I can just generate the drop and create table statement for this particular table. So what we will do, that in case if some value will get changed in the orders table, so for example right now we have the values like quantity, unit price, text rate. So if sometime if a value got changed, for example for unit price or quantity, so that particular value should be updated into the fact table. So that's why we will keep this particular table. This is kind of a staging table, that it will check that if fact.orders underscore update table exists on the data warehouse database, then it will drop the table and then it will regenerate the table. So this particular table will be regenerated every time you will execute the SSIS package. So I can copy the query from here and I can just configure the execute SQL task. In the connection, I will make a connection to the data warehouse database, FEMCell data warehouse database, and I can click on OK. And now under SQL statement, I can just paste the query and I can click on OK. So the staging table code has been written. Now let me just drag and drop the data flow task into the control flow window. So this will be the most important task of this particular package, where we will figure out how many records will be inserted to the fact table. So I can call it like migrate data to fact table. Okay, and now I can configure this particular task. Because we are going to select the data from the transactional system, so we will be using the OLEDB source here, and I can configure the OLEDB source. Under data access mode, I will select SQL command, and then what I can do, I can just remove this one, and I have a query already written here. So let me copy this particular query and paste this particular query. Okay, so what exactly we are doing here, that we are selecting everything from the orders table from the transactional system, and then we are generating the binary checksum for the quantity, unit price and tax rate. So let me just show you this particular query. So these are the columns, those exist in the source system in the orders table, and then I'm just generating a binary checksum value for these three columns. Okay, so for example, if any column value got changed here, like quantity value got changed, or unit price got changed, or tax rate got changed, then the value of the binary checksum will be changed as well. So we are generating the binary checksum for three fields on the source table, and similarly we will generate the binary checksum on these three fields on the fact table, and then we will compare only one column, which will be the binary checksum. So instead of comparing three columns like quantity, unit price, tax rate 1 to 1, we will just compare one column. So because it will be faster than comparing three columns, so that's why we are using the binary checksum here. So I can copy this particular query from here, and then I can just paste the query here, and I can check all the columns, that the column seems good here, and I can click on OK. So this is like we are reading the data from the source system. Now if I go back to the SQL Server Management Studio, and if I run this particular query, the first surrogate key that will be used is the customer surrogate key. Okay, and the customer surrogate key, it will come from the customer table, dimension.customer table. Okay, so we need to use a lookup transformation, and we need to select the customer surrogate key and the customer ID from the dimension.customer table, and then we will do a join on the customer ID from the femcell.dbo.orders table. So based on a join on the customer ID, we will select the customer surrogate key. Okay, so let me just go back to the SSIS package, and let me just drag and drop the lookup transformation into the data flow task. So I can connect the OLEDB source with the lookup transformation, and I will call this lookup transformation as customer. Okay, so that I know that this is the lookup transformation for the customer dimension. And now I can configure the lookup transformation. Under specify how to handle the rows with no matching entries, we will select the redirect rows to no match output, because we want that the lookup transformation should return two outputs. The one output will be for the matched records, and another output will be for the unmatched records. And now I can click on the connection, and now I need to click on the use results of an SQL query radio button, and here I need to write a query. I have already written a select query here, and I can paste it in the SSIS package, and I will share, of course I will share all the scripts with you. So what we are doing here, we are selecting the customer surrogate key and customer ID from the dimension.customer table where end date is null. End date is null means we are selecting only the active records from the dimension table. Now I can click on the columns, and here I need to connect the customer ID from the source table into the customer ID of the dimension table, and I can select the customer SK from the dimension table. So that's what we are doing here. Okay, now I can click on OK, and then I can use a derived column transformation here. And for the non-matched records, okay, for the non-matched records, what we will do, that we will, let me just go back to the columns and copy the output alias name, which is the customer SK. Let me copy this name from here, and in the derived column transformation, for the non-matched outputs where the value will be null, we will create a new column which will be customer sk, and the value for the customer sk we will give as 0, because the default value will be 0 for the customer sk, so that the package won't fail if there is a foreign key on the fact table. Okay, so this value, the value from the dimension table 0 value will be used. Now I can click on OK, and then I will use a union all transformation. Okay, and what we will do, that we will connect the lookup match output from the customer table and then the derived column output to the union all transformation. Okay, so the customer sk is done. Now the second code that we need to write is for the employee sk. Okay, so for employee sk we need to select the data from the employee table, dimension.employee table. We need to make a join between the employee id of the dimension.employee and then the employee id of the femcell.dbo.orders table, and then we need to select the employee sk. Okay, so let me just copy the query for the employee table, and what I can do, actually I have already written the query. So this is the query for the employee table, so I can just select this one and I can copy this one. Now in the SSIS package I can just drag and drop the lookup transformation for the employee, and I can connect the union all with the lookup transformation. I can rename it to employee, and then I can right click and configure the lookup transformation. Under specify how to handle rows with no matching entries, I will select the redirect rows to no match output, and then I can click on connection. I will be using this particular radio box use results of an SQL query, and I can paste this particular query here. Select employee sk employee id from dimension.employee where value 2 is null. So it will select all the active records from the dimension.employee table. Now I can go to the columns and I can connect the employee id from the source table with the employee id of the dimension table, and then I will select the employee surrogate key. I can copy the employee surrogate key from here, click on OK, and then I can just drag and drop the another derived column transformation into the data flow task. I can connect the non-match output result from the lookup transformation, and then I can create a new derived column here, and I will put the value 0 for the expression, and I can click on OK. Now I need to use another union all transformation, and then I can connect the employee, the output from the employee lookup transformation, and then I can connect the output from the derived column transformation. Okay, so the employee lookup transformation is done. So our second surrogate key employee is done. Now the third surrogate key is the product surrogate key. So for the product surrogate key we will make a join on the product id between this particular table, dimension.product table, and then the femcell.dbo.orders table based on join on the product id, and then we will select the product surrogate key and will insert the product surrogate key into the fact table. So let me copy the query from here for selecting the data from the product table, and let me just drag and drop the lookup transformation again into the data flow task, connect the union all with the lookup transformation, and I will call this one as product, and then I can configure the lookup transformation. Under specify how to handle rows with no matching entries, I will select redirect rows to no match output, and then I can click on connection, and I will select this option use results of a SQL query, and then I can paste the query here. If I click on the columns, now I can connect the product ID from the source with the product ID of the dimension table, and then I will select the product SK, and now I can copy the product SK from here, click on OK, and then I can just drag and drop the derived column transformation, and then I can connect the product lookup transformation for the lookup no match output with the derived column transformation, and I can just paste the derived column name here, and I can provide a value 0 here. Okay, and then I can click on OK. Now I can drag and drop the union all transformation into the data flow task, and I can connect the output from the product lookup transformation to the union all transformation, and then I can connect the derived column to transformation with the union all transformation. Now the last lookup transformation that is remaining is the date surrogate key. Okay, so for the date surrogate we will select the date from the last edited date, and we will do a join on the date value from the date column. So we will do a cast and then we will ignore the time part from here and we'll do a join and we'll select the date key. So the date key column will be inserted to the date surrogate key column of the fact table. So I have already written a query here that, so I am selecting the date key from the dimension.date table and then doing a cast of the date as date, so it will actually remove the timing part from the date. So this will become a actual date so that I can do a join on the last edited date. Okay, so I can just copy this particular query from here, and now I can go back to the SSIS package and drag and drop the lookup transformation into the data flow task. I can connect the union all to with the lookup transformation, and I will call this lookup transformation as date. Okay, so that we know that this is for the date dimension. Now I can configure the lookup transformation, and I can change the specify how to handle rows with no matching entries to the redirect rows to no match output. And now I can click on the connection and I can select this option, use results of a SQL query, and I can paste the query here. I can go to the columns and then I can select the last edited date with the date column, and then I can select the date key. Okay, you can say that date SK because this will be the date surrogate key in the fact table, date SK. Okay, so date SK will be the output alias. I can click on OK. Now what I can do, I can just drag and drop another derived column transformation into the data flow task, and then I can connect the no match output from the lookup transformation with the derived column transformation, and then I can create a new column here, date SK, and the value for the date SK will be 19000101. Okay, because this is the default value for the date dimension. Now I can click on OK. Now I need to use another union all transformation here, and I can connect the output from the lookup transformation with the union all 3, and I can connect the output from the derived column 3 with the union all again. Okay, so if you right click on the union all transformation, so you will see that all the columns got matched here, that these are the columns from the union all 1, input 1, this is for input 2, and this is the final column. So this is good. I can click on OK. Now what we need to do is that in the last we need to do a lookup transformation again. This is for the checking if a data already exists in the fact table or not. So if the data already there in the fact table, then we will check if there is some change into the data. So if the data got changed, then we will update the data. Otherwise, if there is no change, then we won't do anything, and if there will be some new records, then the new records will be inserted to the fact.orders table. So I can connect the output of the union all 3 with the last lookup transformation, and this is for fact, so maybe I can write like fact lookup here. Okay, and then I can right click and configure the fact lookup. Under specify how to handle rows with no matching entries, I will select the redirect rows to no match output, and I can click on connection, and then I will select this option, use results of a SQL query, and I can go back to the SSMS, and here what we need to do, we need to write this query, select star from the femcell data warehouse.fact table.orders, and we are doing a binary checksum of the all 3 columns, those we did for the source table as well, like quantity, unit price, tax rate, and we will call it as dashed BSM, binary checksum. Okay, so if you run this query, so as of now the fact table is empty, so I can paste the query here. Now if you click on the columns, so now what you can do, you can actually join the order ID from the source table with the order ID of the fact table. Okay, and then from this particular table we will select the dashed BSM, binary checksum value from the fact table, and now I can click on OK. Now from the fact lookup transformation, 2 output will be returned, and we will use an OLEDB destination here. So the first OLEDB destination will be to insert the data into the fact orders table. Okay, so this will be inserted, so no matching output will be inserted directly into the fact table. So for the lookup no match output, what we can do, we can insert the data directly into the fact.orders table. So I can select the fact.orders table from here, and I can click on the mappings. So all input columns got matched with the destination column, so this is good. I can click on OK. And now for the non-match output, what we will do, we will do a conditional split transformation here. Okay, so now we will connect the lookup match output with the conditional split transformation, and now under the conditional split transformation we will put a condition that if the BSM is the binary checksum of the source table. If this is not equal to the binary checksum of the destination table means the fact table. So if the binary checksum value is not same, it means that it's a updated records. Okay, so we need to do the update for this particular case. So I can click on OK. And now for the updated records, if you remember, we have already created a fact underscore update table. Okay, so in the first step we created a staging table, fact orders underscore update. So we will insert the data into the orders underscore update for the updated records. So for the updated records we will insert the data here. So I can just right click and configure the OLEDB destination, and then I will select the fact dot orders underscore update table, and you can click on the mappings. So the mapping seems good here. I can click on OK. So this is done. Now what we need to do, we need to just update the data to the fact table. So I can just drag and drop the execute SQL task into the control flow window, and I can rename it like update fact table. Okay, and then I can right click and configure this particular transformation. From the connection I will select the data warehouse connection. Under SQL statement source I need to put this particular query. I already written an update statement, and let me show you what we are doing here in the update table, that we are going to update the fact dot orders table from the fact dot orders underscore update table based on a join on the order ID, and we will update all the columns like customer surrogate key, employee surrogate key, product surrogate key, date surrogate key, and then the 3 actual columns like quantity, unit price, tax rate, and the last edited when. So we will update all these columns. So I can just copy this particular query and paste it here. I can click on OK. OK. So now my SSIS package is done. This is 100% complete, and let me execute the SSIS package. So in the first attempt, this should insert 20,000 records from the source table into the fact table. So if you check the data flow task, so you can see that 20,000 records came from the source table, and now they are flowing through all the different transformations like lookup transformation, derived column, and union all, and then in the last they got inserted to the fact orders table. So all the 20,000 records got inserted to the fact table. So if you check the fact table now, let me just remove this particular statement, and if you check the fact femcell data warehouse dot fact dot orders table, so there should be 20,000 records. Yeah, so there are 20,000 records in the table, and so this customer surrogate key is coming from the dimension dot customer table, employee surrogate key is coming from the dimension dot employee table, product surrogate key is coming from the dimension dot product table, date surrogate key is coming from the dimension dot date table, and these 3 columns like quantity, unit price, and tax rate, and actually the 4th one as well, last edited one, this is coming from the source table. So our source table name is femcell.dbo.orders table. Okay, so for example, for the first record, if you check for the order ID 1, if you check the data, so in the source system source table we have the order ID as 1, and this is the same order ID, and if you check the value for this particular thing like quantity, unit price, tax rate, so this is same exactly, quantity, unit price, tax rate, and the last edited date is also same. Now the thing is, if you check the product ID here, so here we have the product ID, but here we have the product surrogate key. Here we have the employee ID, but in the fact table we have the employee surrogate key, and here we have customer ID, but we have the customer surrogate key here. Okay, now for example, if I update the value for any of these columns like quantity, unit price, or tax rate, then the same value should be updated to the fact table as well. Okay, so let me just try to run an update query here, update femcell.dbo.orders. okay, and let me set the unit price to 225 where order ID equal to 1. So let me just update the value for this one record. So if you select the data now, so in the source table we have the unit price as 225, however in the fact table we have the unit price as 210. Now let me execute the SSIS package, and it should update only one record into the fact table. So now you can see that 20,000 records came from the source system, but in the end only one records went to the updated, and the value of the unit price should be updated in the fact table. So you can see that the value of the unit price got updated in the fact table. This is how it will work. And for example, if you will insert a new record into the femcell.dbo.orders table, then the new record should be inserted to the fact table. So let me insert a record into the femcell.dbo.orders table. So what I can do, I can insert a new record here, insert to, okay, and what I can do, the order ID, I need to provide some order ID here. So how many records we already have in this particular table, orders table? So we have 20,000 records. Okay, so I can provide a value as maybe 20,001. Okay, and product ID I can provide, I don't know, 1. Employee ID I can provide as 1. Customer ID I can provide as 1. Quantity I can provide maybe 100, and unit price I can provide as 100. Tax rate I can provide as 15.00. last edited when I can provide as get date here, and last edited date I can provide as get date. Okay, so let me just run this particular query. So the query ran fine, and let me select the data now. If you rerun the query, so for the orders table we have now 20,001 records. Okay, and the last record is the one that I just inserted here, and this record does not exist in the fact table. And for example, I can copy this 20,001 value here, and so that you know that there is no record for the 20,001 in the fact table. Now if I rerun my SSIS package for loading the data into the fact table, then the one record should be inserted to the fact table. So now you can see that 20,001 records came from the source table, but only one record got inserted to the fact orders table. And now if you rerun this particular query, so you will see that one record got inserted to the fact table. Okay, so guys, this is how you can insert the data into the fact table. Thank you guys for watching the video, and if you like the video, then please click the like button, do subscribe to our channel, press the bell icon and click on all so that you will be notified every time I upload a new video. Thank you so much.